Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. So I lived out of my car on and off when I was living in Seattle, Washington, and to a lesser extent here in Phoenix as well. And I want to do the math, but I want to say at least a third of my adult life I have lived out of my car. It's been on and off, right? In Seattle, when the winters got too brutal, I did check into a month-to-month apartment or sometimes an Airbnb. There have been gaps where I have lived out of my car here in the Phoenix area, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but there is one big benefit in knowing how to live out of your car, right? There's knowing how to live out of your car, and there's actually practicing it. And I think the knowing how is more important than anything else. Let me give you an example. I'm living in a hostel right now, and I'm sharing this place with, among other people, a family member of the owner who's kind of managing it for the family member, right? And he's a big whiner about noise. He earlier today, 10 p.m., I was working on some art projects, just taping. You guys saw, I recently found some double-sided tape that works really well. I got some frames at the Michaels store, and I was putting it together. And you can kind of imagine how much noise that might make, right? You put some metal down, it makes clink clink, and very gently, right? And maybe some walking around noise, some scissors for cutting the tape, and he complains about noise. And he also had a number of petty complaints, right? I had gone out to my car to fetch something, and he did, like, my car is literally right there, and he complained that I left the door open while I went out to my car. You know, he says there's reptiles in here, but that's all right. I'll remember to close the door. But part of the reason I didn't close the door was because I didn't want to make noise. And you know, there's some people, some roommates make so much noise that they annoy the fuck out of you, right? I've been there before. But some roommates complain so much about noise that, you know, they might not make noise. Like the roommate that I'm living with definitely doesn't make a lot of noise at night, but his complaints make a ton of noise in my heart, right? It makes the entire living situation very heavy, right? And that in its own right almost feels like a kind of noise, right? I know it's a weird analogy, but that's how I would describe it. And you know, now that I know how to live out of my car, if need be, like, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It allows me to reason with these people, right? And, you know, what's really funny is that nobody else complains about noise. And, you know, he thinks that he's doing us a favor by enforcing the rules of the Airbnb, right? It did say quiet hours at 10, right? He thinks he's doing everybody a favor. What's really funny is that when he comes out to complain about it, you know, if we had a machine to measure decibel levels, his complaining about it is probably noisier than my walking around or my cutting of tape or setting metal down on the table. Probably way louder than that, right? That's the funny part of it, right? And but he still thinks he needs to do that. I personally think he's a little bit power hungry, but I didn't say that to him, and I wish him well. You know, I empathize with him that he has a sensitive hearing. I say, oh, sorry to hear that your hearing is a little bit more sensitive. I'm sorry, right? And but at the same time, I can play with him, right? I'm not worried about losing the place or anything like that, and I'll play with him till the end, right? And it's really nice, right? I wish I could do that with my quiet quitting at my job, right? A lot of times I don't have the luxury of completely checking out at my job, right? You know, someday, you know, I often dream that when I hit it big with either Bismuth or with my art projects or with anything else, right? With all the stuff that Peter Shid is saying that might happen with the gold mining stocks. If I hit it big there, I'll carry this kind of attitude to my job. I really will. Play with them, right? Reason with them. Even when they're unreasonable. I've had Fortunately, not at my current jobs, but I've had power-hungry bosses before, and it's really nice, right? Now, what really bothers me is that the guy, the joker that complains about these noises, let me see if I can quietly show you his living situation without causing him to blow up again. Actually, maybe I could show you guys through the window here. This is the kitchen in the living area where I was making the art. And he lives in one of the rooms that's literally just a curtain. And of course, he hears every little detail, right? Including whether or not the front door was closed, and then he got really upset. And then he lives in that kind of situation. Nobody else is complaining about noise, and he hears every little sound, and then he complains about it, and very frustrating, right? But at the same time, I can reason with him because I'm not afraid of losing the place and play with him. I'm thinking earlier today when he complained about the art project, I almost thought about tomorrow when I go out to get more art supplies of maybe also get a pack of really good earplugs and give them to him wrap it up as an early Christmas present. And I'm not up to that point yet, but if it comes to it, I wouldn't be too uncomfortable with doing that. And yeah, it's really nice. Right now, as I record this, it's about 60-70 degrees outside, and if need be, right, actually I slept in my car during the viewing of the solar eclipse. Now, do I like sleep? Would I prefer to have had a hotel room when I went out to see the solar eclipse? Sure, but I got other priorities going on. In fact, part of the reason I slept in my car was so that I wouldn't oversleep, right? All right, thought I would point out that living out of your car ought to be like a skill that people learn, right? It really frees up a lot of nonsense that you have to deal with, right? Especially if you have to live with roommates or deal with landlords, and it really allows me to speak up, right? And I wish I could. Well, obviously, I am quiet quitting all of my jobs, right? I mean, I wouldn't say I dislike my job at Phoenix College or Grand Canyon University, but I have a healthy level of quiet quitting, right? These people, if something unreasonable were to happen between myself, my colleagues, or my students, or upper management, there has to be a healthy level of disassociation with those people, right? This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.